I was riding at Mammoth. I look over, there's this guy like head to toe in Louis Vuitton. I'm like, what the like, you just don't see that as often. And this wasn't Aspen or whatever, and I was like, no way. That could probably only be one or two people, and it was Virgil.
Wow.
We love design, we love this sport, and then it all came together, and he made me a whole set of luggage to go to the Olympics with.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to another Boardroom Out of Office. My name is Rich Kleiman, and today we got an extra special guest, 5-time Olympian, 3-time Olympic gold medalist, and if I have this right, 15-time X Games gold medalist. And I'll add to that, entrepreneur. Welcome, Shaun White.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, man. And I hear you're living in New York now for a few months?
Yeah, for a minute. I'm here. I love the city, obviously, but I'm working on a documentary, and they're doing the editing in Brooklyn. So I'm popping over every day to
amazing,
check out the new edits and give my input. It's really cool. It's the makers of The Last Dance.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, kind
That's
of telling my story. It's going to be amazing. So
that's
really
awesome,
excited
man.
about it. Yeah, it's coming out.
Is this the first time you've ever really documented your life?
I've done things where it's, hey, from this point with a little bit of history leading into the next Olympics or something like that, but it's never been kind of the whole story. But it's a trip. I mean, you go in and just watch your whole life for 4 hours. You're like, whoa.
Did I say?
But yeah, there's a few episodes, and it'll be coming out on the merger of Discovery and Warner.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so really excited about
That's really
that.
cool,
Yeah,
man.
HBO. Here we go.
So you're doing a lot now post-retirement.
Yeah.
First and foremost, I know you teased it before the Olympics, but your brand Whitespace, you officially launched.
Here we go. Here we go.
And you're selling it exclusively at backcountry?
Yeah, in the beginning, there's a lot of moving parts and pieces, and I'm running into the Olympics, doing that whole, it's just so much going to the Olympics and getting ready for all of that, and then trying to launch the brand simultaneously. And we had an opportunity to partner with Backcountry, so they do our manufacturing, our distribution, all of our, all the heavy lifting there, and we'd have an exclusive with them for a while. But they're so amazing. I mean, they've had their hands in, outdoor sports for, the past 25 years or more, and they have this amazing customer service, because that's half the battle. I want to go snowboard. What do I get? Yep. How tall is the board? What should my stance be? What bindings? What boots? What helmet? There's so much equipment, and you can be, lost in it. So it's really great that they're helping us out with that. And then we're doing all the boards pretty much on our own. So which is fun, because that's for me, that's what I know, so I'm obviously suited to do all the product development, all that stuff. So.
And what was the why in creating this? Was this something that throughout your career you envisioned kind of bringing to life at some point, or was there a motivation other than that?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I grew up, idolizing Tony Hawk, and I was around Jake Burton and these guys, huge influences in my life, and they own their own brands. I mean, Tony Hawk had Birdhouse skateboards. He had the best skaters in the world that skate. All my friends are like, oh, it'd be a dream to be on Birdhouse, or, you remember Powell and all those amazing brands back in the day. And obviously Jake, amazing. He shaped the sport. And so I've always kind of admired and wanted to do that, but never really thought I had the capabilities to do it. But remember, I've been riding for brands like Burt and others, since I was 7 years old, developing products, testing new equipment, all these things. And so really pulling the curtain and seeing what they're doing behind the scenes. So I feel like I just got a full crash course in how to do a company.
Yeah.
And it all just kind of made sense at this certain point right before this last Olympics.
And Burton, I know, was a partner of yours for a long time.
Oh, yeah.
How was that kind of reaction from them? Have they been supportive of it? Do you become competition now right away?
I think I wouldn't say we're competition right out the gate. I mean, I don't know as much as that. I mean, we have plans to grow. I would love to be in the winter sports world, but not only in that place, just because I feel like my life, there's so much going on. Obviously, my roots are in the winter space, but I feel like we could do a lot more than just be in there. I just really want to represent performance, which is what my life's been about. But, unfortunately, Jake Burton passed away. So that was a hard hit for the entire snowboarding community, but I feel like he'd be proud, you know what I mean? I'm walking my own path now, and that's pretty pretty amazing feeling for me. And I know it's probably, you know, respected among those guys. So.
Well, it's fine. I read something in the press release about this like transitional element to what you're creating, right? And I know in basketball, Nike maybe 20 years ago really put that emphasis on like whatever you wear to go play hoop in, how do you keep that on or throw a sweatshirt over it and be able to go right into your evening or go right into that meeting. Is that part of the plan, like to be able to create this for somebody that is engaging in winter sports, but also like the whole après ski, which is like my best part of the whole experience.
Yeah, totally. You hit it on the head. I mean, for me, that's the whole deal. Like when designing the line, I'm like, okay, well, what would I pack? And like, where am I going? I'm like, okay, I gotta go to Switzerland, but then right after that, I'm coming to New York. And I'm like, all right, well, I've designed the garments to be, you know, like our underlayers, like this cool kind of mock neck, sort of a thermal layer, but I can easily wear it on the mountain to keep me warm, but then throw a pea coat over it or a suit over it to like, you know, wear around the city and whatnot. And we have a performance jacket where I designed it to be, you know, the perfect sort of competition jacket where there's a jacket that zips out of it. Because when you're riding, you don't want to be cumbersome. You got to be lightweight, and you know your job's to get in the air, so you want to be lightweight, but you got to stay warm. And then there's lag time in between your runs. I'm waiting at the top. You're freezing, you know, and you're just sitting there waiting. So I needed something I could easily like dump a layer. But then we decided, hey, well, why not make that layer that you pull out, not the standard puffy whatever. Like we should make something that's more of like a Sherpa, a shearling that you can wear out after. You know what I mean? So that was definitely in the back of my mind because of just my life and where I go, and there's only so much room to pack things. So that was for sure part of the thinking behind it. But it's so much fun. I don't have to like, you know, run that up the corporate ladder. I can just like, this is what we're doing. Yeah. You know, and so there's been some amazing things that have happened along the way. You know, it's a funny story. I was riding Mammoth Mountain training. And this is the cool part. And this is what I don't think people talk about as much. But as an athlete, like when you join a sponsor, right, it's like, okay, this company's already got their mold. Like these are our colors. This is our slogan. This is our logo. This is where the company's going in this direction. It's my job as an athlete, I feel like, to fit their mold the best I can while still trying to be me. You know, be who you are, but then fit our mold. And so this is like, we're just building the mold from scratch. So you really get to say and do whatever you want. And I was riding at Mammoth. I look over, there's this guy like head to toe in Louis Vuitton. I'm like, what the like, you just don't see that as often. And this wasn't Aspen or whatever, you know. And I was like, no way. That could probably only be one or two people, and it was Virgil. Wow. And I'm just like, no way. Okay. So we took some laps. I got his information, and you know, I'm thinking about starting this brand. I call him. I'm like, well, hey, I got this legend at my disposal. Maybe I'll call him and get some advice. And so we're talking. And at the end of our call, he's like, I love the name. I love the logo. I love what you're doing. This is great. You should think about maybe this to start. And, you know, just do what you know, do it well. And then at the end of the call, it's like, hey, man, before COVID, like I love luggage. And I was like, man, like, take this for whatever, you know, here's some inspiration. I sent him this rendering because I was getting a trunk made before the world shut down to house all my snowboarding equipment. And he's like, no way, like this is incredible. We gotta do this. We gotta make that a reality. And so like just a natural thing that sort of happened when I bumped into him. We both vibe on the same sort of, we love design, we love this sport. And then it all came together, and he made me a whole set of luggage to go to the Olympics with. You know, collaborated with, we have this white stripe that we put, it's on the back of my thing here, but we have that on all the luggage and all this stuff. And I mean, it was the sad part of the story is he, you know, passed away before he could see the finished product. But I had my Virgil was here moment at the Olympics with my case and you know, but just stuff like that, like it can just naturally happen now because I'm in the driver's seat, you know, which is really fun.
That's pretty amazing that you have that like moment to pull from too, you know, with somebody that meant so much to so many people and in fashion, and get a little bit of game before you start this is pretty incredible. Yeah,
out the gate I was like, wow, is this happening? And then I was like, what are the odds that like the head designer at LV is like a huge snowboard fan?
He must have been the most like well decked out snowboarder of all time. Right?
And it's and I mean, I'm probably not supposed to share any of the stuff he sent me, but like he, you know, the stuff he was planning on making was so wild. I mean, definitely we'll draw some inspo from that later. Yeah, you know, his stuff's super out there at times, but still so cool. But yeah, like what an amazing experience. And then there's a full circle of it all, because like, you know, I got my first board when I was 7, you know, or no, excuse me. Well, I was sponsored at 7, but like I got my first board. Yeah, that was Burton. You know, they didn't make kids boards, and so I got my first kids board, and I remember it changed my life. You know what I mean? And it brought me to this place today. And now I'm on the other side of it, where I'm looking at like the next generation, the talent, and going, wow, like I really respect this up and comers riding. Like maybe with the right influence, I could help them be incredible, you know? And so it's really fun to be on the other side of it.
Sure.
Now. Yeah.
I definitely want to get to that, but I got to first understand how one gets sponsored at 7. Like I'm obviously, I work a lot in basketball and around football, and people get identified at young ages. 7 is like insanely young. How did that even happen?
Well, there's no real rules, and isn't there like, you
there's
know,
no
hey,
rules left anymore, period.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I mean, even in the Olympics back in the day, you weren't supposed to have any sponsors, you know, and they opened that up. You can have your own sponsors and things, but
your own Olympic sponsors.
Yeah, exactly. So there was no real path. You know, snowboarding wasn't much when I started in the sport. You know, most of the riders weren't really welcome on most mountains and things, and we kind of found the path through it all. But I think it's my mom and family, you know, parents took us to the resort, and they just didn't have kids boards. The sport was that new. And I remember riding a board that was like way too big for me. And my mom was like, I just started calling around like, well, hey, do you make kids boards? Do you make kids, like Solomon, all the major brands, and no one had stuff except for Burton was coming out with a kids line. And they just so happened to be like, no way, how old is he? Like, okay. And they needed kids to like test the products and whatnot. So it wasn't like they offered me like a huge check or something. It was just that I was starting to receive flow product from them in a sponsorship. And then later they started helping me out with travel budget and things to get around. And then, I went pro at 13, and it just went from there. Yeah.
You don't even know what I was doing at 13. Oh my God. Do you like that competitive juice that you get, and you've been competing your whole life, 30 years. Do you feel like you can get some of that now? Because like you said, when you get paid by a brand, and I know this from my own experiences working with talent, you know, it can be as authentic as it can be. You know, it's like, it's not your brand. You're finding where you fit in, and you're getting paid for services. But the success and failure of this in some ways rests on you, and you get to watch like the arrow go up when the sales go out the door. Is that starting to kick in, that competitive feeling a bit? Yeah,
I mean, you're literally saying everything that's been going on. It's so awesome. I mean, you know firsthand, but yeah, for me, and like you said, it's not to discredit any deals you do. It's not that I don't like this product. I mean, maybe I love the product, but it's not my creation. It's not something I did, and I'm joining on, which is great. But for me, I mean, this has just been incredible. Like, so my brother, he's 7 years older than me. He's helping me do all the design work. So we're together on the phone going over the
family biz. Yeah,
it's family in the mix. I have friends that are helping me out, and like you said, like we launched, you know, a few days ago, and like we got the phone out and we're like eating lunch. It's all ping. It's like, oh, Teresa from Minnesota just bought a hoodie. Yeah. Like, oh, this is so cool. And like, I'm like, should I send her a video letter? Like, should I send her a message? Like,
you can't scale that.
You know, no, I know. But like, just, hey, thanks, Teresa. You know, like, it's so exciting. It's so fun. And I'm, you know, I got like that amazing feeling when, you know, we've been getting tagged on our Instagram, Whitespace_create, and they've had you know, people unboxing their boards. It was a young girl, and she was unboxing her board and like looked at her dad, like, it's here. And I just remember that feeling. And so there's definitely that love and connection, and it's something that's so authentic to me. I'm not here pushing a new tequila or something, you know what I mean, which is delicious, but
I totally get it.
You know, I will be, and I went, no, give me some time.
Whitespace,
yeah. Distilled at the Alps of, but I think for me, you hit it on the head. It just feels great. There's family involved, and this is something that's like, you know, dear to me. So, yeah.
And I saw you had at one point, you know, 750 brand deals, some crazy number. And you just retired. Have you had to kind of start getting rid of some of these and balance a bit of how like post-retirement business looks as opposed to when you were competing?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just a mixture of things where I don't know. I mean, to be completely honest, it was like the competitive years were like, hey, I don't know how long this is going to last. Like, let's get the checks when we can. And like, there's global warming, there's all these things happening. And it was very, a very, very unsure sort of future. And I had friends that would get injured. Something would happen and it's over.
Yep.
And so I remember being like, okay. Then I hit a point in my career where I'm like, well, look, I'm feeling more financially stable and the longevity of my life. Because athletes, it's wild. And I didn't realize this till a bit later in my career. But like, if you look at the lifespan of an athlete, you make basically all the money up front, a large sum of money, but that needs to then last you your entire life. Where most traditional jobs, you get senior toward the senior toward the end of it, and you make partner, you whatever, and you make the most money you're ever going to make in your career, and you don't have as long to live. Not to be grim about it, but that's just how it works. So you have to learn as an athlete how to stretch that over a certain amount of time. And so, that was kind of the plan. And then all of a sudden I hit that threshold and went, whoa, why don't I take some more risks? Why don't I do some things that maybe don't have that upfront guarantee, but there's more reward on the back end? Yeah. And as I've transitioned into, retirement, it's more just like, what do I want to do? What do I love to do? Like, what makes me happy? Do I need to attend this event to shake hands? No, like I'd rather go to dinner with the buddies and do whatever, and it's more those things that you want and it's time, honestly. Yeah. It's like, well, where do I really want to plant my roots and what I really want to be involved in? And through that, let's then kind of spread out and do more things. But I'd say that's why, like, when I look at what's most important to me right now, it's for sure, it's like this Whitespace. We have a sports and music festival called Air and Style that's taken a huge backseat because of, COVID and the state of the world right now, which I'd love to bring back. But those are those things where I'm like, God, I love music and I love putting, sports and music together and doing all these things, like it just was really fun. And if you can turn that into, a moneymaker as well as, something that does, great things for the communities in which it, is featured, it's really amazing. So I'm always thinking about sort of like, what's the full loop of it all?
And what about just from like a strict athletic standpoint? Do you still wake up and get that itch and miss a bit of it? Do you still train at all?
Well, that's the one thing I asked other athletes. I was like, so what's up? Like, what do I like, give me some, some heads up. I didn't ask Tom.
Yeah. I mean, because don't ask Tom.
Don't ask Tom. No. But yeah, most athletes were like, do not stop working out. They're like, it's just make it a part of your life. You'll feel better. It's just, don't stop that. And it keeps that fight in you. And then a lot of them told me, they're like, look, you're going to want to jump to something new immediately. Like, oh, this is it. Like whatever, the breakup and you're like, oh, I'm with her now, or whoever. You need to give it time. You're not just going to find something that fills that space in your life immediately, and you should be comfortable with not knowing what that is for a bit. Obviously, having this brand has like cushioned that sort of come down and fall of it all. And even after the Olympics, like I told my girlfriend, I'm in this wonderful relationship, and she was like, what do you want to do after? I'm like, I just want to travel, but I want to do it for fun. I want to see all the places that like snowboarding doesn't take me. Yeah. I'm not hitting the mountains of Monaco. You know what I mean? I was like, let's go check it out. Like, so that was really fun, but like any vacation that ends and just being real with you, like I haven't actually gone through a winter season yet where I'm not competing. So I'm a little like, I don't know how that'll be, but that itch never really goes away. I think that's just part of you, you're like, well, if I did the sit-ups and then I came back and that's how you think. You're always plotting of like, how do I come back or how do I be the best? Yeah. And that part of you never really turns off, but it's nice that like with the brand, like, that endless pursuit of progression. I mean, for me, it doesn't have to lay dormant. Like we already switched factories. I'm like, we could make better boards here. We can do this. Like, what if, and that part of me still is like alive competing. And well, and it's a full on competition still. And there's that reward of like, people, enjoying your products, and there's that connection with people. You're like, look, I sat and worked on this. It was a drawing, then there was a sample, then I thought, hey, this is how we should photograph it and put it out there. This is the packaging, this is the price tag, this is everything. And someone, there's so much product available, and someone stood there and went like, I like this, and it best suits like what I represent, what I'm about. And then you have that connection with people.
100%.
I love it. I love the full circle of it. And, but yeah, I'll let you know after this season how I'm feeling.
Or just go spend the winter season by the beach or something, and you'll have no pull.
Yeah.
Do you like, in terms of like that feeling of loss at all, is skateboarding also register in the same way, or is it not the same kind of emotional connection the way snowboarding has been for you?
I think skateboarding was just that the grass is greener situation, where I was always snowboarding, and I loved it. Don't get me wrong. I had all the sponsors in snowboarding, but I loved skateboarding, and skateboarding to me represents home, because I grew up at the beach in California, and I could be home and go skate.
Yeah.
Like at home, I was like, oh, my family's there. Like I was in a relationship, all these, that's like home. And so I always wanted that, because I didn't have it as much, because there's snow somewhere always year round. There's glaciers, there's the, New Zealand, Australia, South America, there's places that there's always snow. And when you have people paying you quite a bit of money to be a snowboarder, you need to go snowboard. And so for me, it was a double-edged sword, where I loved skateboarding. I wanted to be a professional skateboarder, but then again, it was a nice thing to go, okay, I'm going to commit to this. And then I can tell the sponsors like, hey, look, I'm not doing that trip or whatever because I'm doing this. So it's not exactly like I'm just sitting here like getting tan. Well, I don't tan much, but I just freckle. It's a lot of freckle. but yeah, so for me, that was one of those things. So when I went pro in skateboarding, and then I reached the point where I won the winter and summer X Games simultaneously for a few years in a row, I was like, all right, I did it.
That's pretty epic.
Which was amazing, and it's fun to touch on it in the doc, because not many people know that whole run. I mean, just to win summer skateboarding, I mean, Tony Hawk, his whole career was, just to be the best in the world of skating.
Some prime
and
time. That's some
I would
Deion
just
Sanders shit,
dip and then go snowboard. It was like, there's definitely some competitors that are like, oh, that's so amazing, and then others that are like, I don't like that. Like, stay in your lane.
Don't make me look like a one sport athlete. Like, there's something wrong with this, man.
But it was an amazing time, and so I felt like I really did that. The only disappointment was there was no Olympics at the time.
I know.
So
I know.
If
That's
it
what
would
I
have
was gonna ask
happened
you, man.
years before, I mean, gosh, I could have been doing the winter summer gold. Would have been nuts. I mean, that would have been.
Have you called
just
anyone in the
incredible.
last year and said, yo, I think I could do skateboarding in the Olympics one more time?
So the last time, when it was the first time ever in Japan, I was going for that one, and it just looked, I just started watching the world go like, oh, this is what's happening with COVID, and this is like, and I'm pretty good at like visualizing the path of where I need to go. It's just a hard one when the landscape keeps changing.
Yeah.
It's like,
I totally know. And that's actually an insane skill set that I've noticed, because I've had the luxury of interviewing a ton of entrepreneurs and CEOs and success stories like yourself. And there is a bit of like reading the playing field, even if it's just reading it for yourself, like knowing where you fit in this whole zeitgeist in the future.
Totally.
But you must have seen like this series of events that would ensue, and you just knew it wasn't right.
Well, it's wild, like, because I was just kind of, I take like this big picture of it all, and I'm looking at it going, okay, like out the gate, they're like, look, we're going to do all the competitions at brand new built skate parks. And I'm like, okay, cool. You've never been there. I've never been there. We both show up. We got about, a couple days to train, and we do our best runs. And then they're like, it's probably easier to do it at existing skate parks. I'm like, oh my God, you grew up down the street from this thing. Every nook and cranny, you know what I mean? It's like you playing at your local court or your whatever, that pebble, that crack in the sidewalk. Like, and now I'm competing with people that have grown up there or been there multiple times. And so I remember like, okay, well, I'll show up a month in advance to like learn the whole park and be dialed. And then like, I'm sitting there going, okay, well, I'll have to plan a month in advance for every single skate park along the tour, plus this, along with my other gig of that. And then COVID, just like, the rules kept changing things. And I was like, you know what? I love this. I'd love to go for it, but I think I need to focus on the snowboarding side of things, and to have another run at the Winter Olympics is like, I think, yeah. And at the time, it wasn't, I'm known for vert skating, which is like what Tony Hawk does, the big ramps. And this was called park. So it's a mix between street and transition. So you have these big cement, like Chelsea Pier, Venice Skate Park at the beach there. So it was a transition for me at the time. But anyways, yeah, I mean, that would be one for the list, but I think I'm good. I think I'm now in a great position to just support and come hang and really just be a part of it. You know what I mean?
I kind of believe you.
Yeah, it's in there still, but I think, this new sort of, it's wild. Honestly, I've talked to guys that I know, other snowboarders, and they're like, it's really fun to wake up and not go, oh, is this the day that I'm going to be really injured? You know what I mean?
Why, is that a real thing that you guys woke up thinking all the time?
For sure. Yeah. Just cause you think like, okay, I'm in Switzerland for a month and I'm training, and it's like, I'm working on these tricks. I'm like tiptoeing around this new big move. And it's like, well, is today the day I'm going to go for it? Is it going to be windy? Is the sun going to come out? I'm going to have to go for it. Is my competitor going to do it? And then I'm forced to do it. Like, you're kind of in this state of like, okay, let's go. And it's not fun at times. He's like, yeah, you're not going to wonder if you're just going to get broke off by the next big trick or whatever. You just get to go enjoy it, purely enjoy it.
So every move that you would work on in practice, for everything you ended up accomplishing, were there moves that you just had to throw away with during practice because you just kept like busting your ass?
For sure. I mean, there's a trick. It's called the double McTwist 1260. And the reason why it's a 1260 is because I did it one less rotation, which is a 1080. And the way the rotation came in, I kept catching my face on the edge of the wall and popped my helmet off at X Games and like scraped my face. And I'm thinking like, oh my God, like I got to do something. It's too dangerous this way. And then I'm thinking, okay, well, and every time there's a close call, you're like, okay, well, that could have been much worse than it was. Okay, I'm okay. But, and then you go back and try it again, and something's got to change. And I realized that if I just did it even harder, spun it more, my back would be facing the wall as I came in rather than my front. And it turned out to be a better trick. More, the odds were better, and so that's kind of how you have to approach it. But yeah, there's certain tricks that like you can do a couple times, but you just know that the consistency's not there.
Yeah,
so you'd be like, oh, that's no good.
I watched the Tony Hawk doc.
Yeah,
and I was like, he was trying to pull some move off over and over and over again.
Might have been the 900.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah,
and it's like gut wrenching to watch, but like that, I think that part of your guys' sport doesn't get spoken about as much because it's like if a basketball player is working on a move in practice, like the downside is like the shot doesn't go in, or you realize like you don't have enough time to get that shot off, or someone gets their hand in your face and you got to have a counter to that. But it could be banging your head into the side of the mountain.
Yeah, it's a mix of like, like I don't want to say MMA, but like it's a mix of some physical contact like that with like almost like race car driving or something. Like there's not often a big crash, but when there is, it's pretty heavy and there's no car to protect me. Like I'm flying through the air. So my face, I have these, you can see this kind of white line and on my forehead here, but like I was in New Zealand and I was having this great day working on these tricks. I'm thinking, all right, like I talked about, like today's the day, I'm going to go for it. And like took off, and just like you shoot a ball or anything, you know, when you mess up, it's just sailing this way. But I'm like 30 feet, no, probably like 19, 20 feet in the air above a wall that's 22 feet tall. So I'm up here and I come down, and of course I'm flipping around like, oh God, this isn't good. Like I know it's wrong. And of course I come around, I see that I'm like 4 feet inside or over the deck of the half pipe. They call it the deck. And so I smash on the top on my hip, and then I'm kind of dazed, and it throws me then 22 feet down to the bottom. And that's where my edge caught, and my face just hit the snow. You know, when your edge catches, it like whips you.
Oh my God.
And so I hit my face, and I'm kind of like, I remember just being really mad because I knew what I did wrong. I was like, really? You know what I mean? Which is that's odd reaction. I was just like, and then I like, so I take my goggles off, you know, they're kind of exploded already, but I kind of pull my stuff away, and there's just pouring blood. I was like, oh God. And something was over here. I was like, what is that? My coach comes running up, and he just looks at me, and he's just like, ooh. So like, no, my whole face had just been split up the middle. So like this lip was over here hanging, and
oh my God.
I bit through my tongue, and my forehead was sliced by my goggle lenses. And I was just like, oh great, now what? And
you look great, by the way.
I thank you. They really did a good job down there in New Zealand, put me together. But yeah, that was one of those things where all of a sudden, the track was great, and then it just, and so you have to deal with that. And then there's the mental sort of like, all right, this happened, but this doesn't happen often. Like, let's get over the fear, and you got to try the trick again. So that happened to me. At that next Olympics, it was Korea 2018, standing there at the top of the pipe, and I'd made a pact with myself. I was like, I'm never going to do it, because the conditions weren't great. I shouldn't have been trying the trick, but I went for it anyways. And I'm flying through the air, or excuse me, I'm at the top of the half pipe for the Olympics, and I hadn't really done the trick yet. I hadn't done the run. And I'm like, well, now or never. You know what I mean? I'm like, all right. So I make my way through it, and I landed that trick that put me in the hospital to win it.
Oh my
It's like, ah. And so when I got to the bottom, man, I just like burst into tears. I couldn't control it, because, it's such an emotional journey to get to that point. Like, my parents are calling, they're like, it's over, like, just retire, just walk away. My coach is saying the same thing, like, this is a sign. I'm like, I know, but my gut's telling me to keep going, and I gotta go with what I'm feeling. And so from all that, last chance, last rider, and I put it down. I was like, I had nightmares after that for the longest time that they're like, the cameras weren't on, and you got to just do it one more time. I'm like, oh my God. We weren't rolling on that take.
Yeah,
so
right.
if you could just hit that once more, I'm like, it was just like a 1 in a million, and I nailed it. And, with the pressure and everything, and I had not done as well at the last Olympics in Sochi. It was 2014, and finished 4th place. Kind of lost the love of the sport and just that drive. Found it again, then was tested with the crash to come back, and so that was like amazing. I don't know if I'm selling the documentary enough for you guys or not, but yeah, it's gonna be a good one. But yeah, that's sports. That's the up and down of it all, and the injuries, the comeback, and I mean, it would have been cool to just keep winning straight through, but I honestly, just the story arc of my life and career of dealing with losing and then injuries and coming back and just saying, like, I'm doing this,
But that's why fans fall in love with athletes, and I think it's interesting for Olympic athletes. And I know you guys compete all year long, and there's nationals and there's Worlds and X Games, but the Olympics are like the pillar in the career. But there's only a few people like you in that, like Lindsey Vonn or Carl Lewis or these Olympians that become brands, become well-known, become famous, and have the opportunity to make a ton of money. And then there's so many other of your peers that just never get these opportunities. And it's probably a combination of just like who you are innately, how you carry yourself, your interests. But was there a concerted effort or a certain roadmap that you had for yourself as you approached this, or did it come to you because of just who you were a bit and your skill?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I think it was a mixture of all of the above, but no, I went to great lengths to make sure that, like, I just did things a little differently. I was like, okay, that's what they're doing, then great. Like, maybe I'll do this. I was always looking for kind of like the separator. Like, what's going to make my run a little bit different? What's going to make my appearance a little bit different? And naturally, like, I had red hair and none of my other competitors did. And so I remember a point where, like, all the kids at school were like cutting their hair, and you remember the gelling it and spiking, frosting it became very popular.
I went bald real young, man.
so you might have, you were fine on that one. But that became really popular, and I was just like, I don't know if that's my jam. I think I'm gonna grow my hair out. And I fell in love with, like, rock and roll music and all these things, and so kind of adopted that way when everybody was going the hip hop route. And now I looked different. I already rode a bit different, and people were like, oh, he's he's on his own path. He's unique. And then you start to feel it and know it and believe it and
follow it.
Yeah, and follow it. And then I would just start looking for ways to be unique, be different. And after the Olympics was, I think, the most important time, because as an athlete, you hope to get a certain level of success, right? And through that success, you're asked to be on talk shows, you're asked to be on magazine covers, all these things. But, people want to paint the picture that they see of you. And so for snowboarding, it was immediately like, great, we love you on the late night spot, but like, what stunt can you do? They're like, can you come out? Like, we'll slide you in, you'll take your goggles off and you'll, open up a Mountain Dew, and and literally every talk show is like, hey, what's this kind of gimmick we can do? Or we'll have them like, we'll green screen you sliding down the building and into the studio, and I had to say no. I was just like, no, because I'm like, I know this is happening. Where if I say yes, then the next talk show is like, well, you did it for the. Why won't you do it? And,
you're the gimmick guy.
Yeah, you're setting a a standard. And so, like, I don't know, maybe it's Tony's thing. I love Tony to death, but like, I've never seen him without his skateboard.
Yeah.
And it's interesting thing. I think he just loves having a skateboard around, but like, that's how I see him and recognize him. And for me, I'm like, I don't want to be carrying my snowboard everywhere. So who I am.
Yeah.
Like, I need to do these certain steps. And so, that was a really tough time to say no when all I wanted to do was say yes and be on these shows. And I got my first thing. It was probably Kimmel or someone. Like, yeah, sure. Well, yeah, come on. And, wore a suit, looked respectable, acted respectable, and like did an interview. And afterward, it was interesting because they're like, God, I just didn't really see that from a snowboarder. We thought you'd be
Spicoli,
this kind of guy. Yeah. And I'm like, no, that's, I know that's what you see or think, but this is it.
Yeah.
Remember my sport ever since I was a kid. They're like, well, your sport's not legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, no, like, I think we're doing things. And then once the Olympics took snowboarding on, it changed everything. But like, I remember going into school, I'm like, hey, like I'm making money. I'm doing this snowboarding thing. And I just need help to get my schooling in. They have programs, but they're like, we have the program, we just can't allow you to do it because you're not on our list. We got horseback riding, we got tennis, we got figure skating, and like
skiing, but
there's no snowboarding. I'm sorry. And so that was always like in the back of my mind, like, how do I help legitimize the sport? And so me doing the stunts or me doing those things, I think just makes it harder in the long run. And so anyways, I think it came full circle because I ran into a friend of mine. He's an editor in the world of snowboarding and really well-respected guy. And he's like, gotta say, man, thank you. And I was like, well, for what? And he's like, honestly, I went to Thanksgiving with my family, and for the longest time, I've been looked at as the outcast, the black sheep of the family or whatever, like the one that didn't amount to much. And I'm sitting there with everybody, and they're like, hey, do you know that Shaun White guy? And he's like, yeah, I work with him all the time. And they're like, oh, that's incredible. He's like, you gave me in my life legitimacy within this, thing. And I was like, wow, that to me, it goes beyond me wanting to look cool or stand out or be different, but it gave, legitimacy to others in our sport. So I don't know. It was partly for that, partly for me, but I'm glad with those decisions made, but it was definitely a conscious thought, and then, you talk about other Olympians. I mean, there's so many Olympians that just like, it's tough to, do your sport and do it in a certain way. And then like be camera ready. Like, it's tough to get to the bottom of the half pipe and say something meaningful or like, memorable.
Win or lose.
I mean, you've seen everything. You're like, yeah, we played great. Just excited for next game. We're going to try even harder. You know what I mean? Like, the weather's nice. Just having fun with my friends, and I'll see you. Like, it's the stock standard thing. And I think within the world of snowboarding, I was the first to be like, no, I'm upset. I wanted to win, and I'm really frustrated about it. I'm going to work harder for next time because like, I don't like to lose, and I want to be the best. And like, people, that was just unheard of in our sport. And I just kind of wore it on my sleeve, and I was like, this is who I am, and this is what I'm into. And
where would you say this sport is now? Like, because you mentioned earlier, part of your goal with Whitespace is to start looking at who these like next up and coming snowboarders are and athletes are. But where is the sport? Because, you know, I would imagine the Olympics solidified it. You obviously have helped solidify it, but where can it still go? Where do you want it to go? And where do you feel like it is now?
Well, it's interesting, you know, just like anything, there's the ebb and flow of involvement. And I would say that snowboarding was on a bit of a down incline just because, you know, snowboarding came out with what we call the twin tip. So basically your front of your board matches the back of your board, which allows you to go switch stance. So you could ride front or back.
Twin tip.
Yeah, twin tip. It used to be just like a square tail, like skateboards used to be square and with a round nose. Same thing. So snowboarding went twin tip, the same shape on both sides, and you could, you know, ride either direction. And skiing went like, whoa, that's actually a really great idea. So they became, you know, involved in freestyle skiing and made twin tip skis. So I think naturally when people go to the mountains, they ski. I skied. You know, it's just you walk straight this way. It just feels like, okay, I don't want to be strapped onto the board. I can't run. You know, like this feels comfortable to me. So a lot of people start skiing first, and with the invention of the twin tip ski or snowboard, came a whole new wave of skiers. You know, and the whole feud of skiing and snowboarders pretty much died out, and everybody's, you know, we're cool with it. It was
a real thing for a while. Like the culture of it.
It became for a couple reasons. One, because, you know, it was a very wealthy person's leisure sport, and they're up on the mountain, and all of a sudden these kind of like hellion snowboarders show up, and, you know, the surf community mixed into snow, and, you know, and just any change to that sort of like, it's like the country club, you know, showing up with pleats. Like, how dare you? Not on my course, you know. Whatever, like there's still that old sort of vibe, and so there was always a clash because skiers didn't want snowboarders on the resort, and that's probably far gone now. But yeah, so that was kind of the old beef, but nowadays it's, you know, it's gone. But and that was a bit of the generation before me, for sure.
And who are the like great young snowboarders right now?
There's a couple amazing talents out there. You know, it's interesting. I wish I could say they're all from the United States, but there's a lot of amazing talent overseas: Japan, Korea, China. You know, the silver medalist was Australian, you know.
I actually just watched some YouTube clips before this. There was a Japanese snowboarder that looked like he was like 8,000 feet in the air in the last Olympics.
Yeah. That's the brother of the snowboarder that got first place.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's amazing. So his whole thing was like, well, I'm not going to win, but
let me go as high as
I'm going to go huge. They're going to remember it.
They did.
Which is so cool. I mean, that's part of the sport. It's like as big as you can go, you know. But it's amazing to see, you know, and where the tricks are heading. And, you know, there's little things that have like changed and advanced the sport. But I definitely think we were on a bit of a down incline, and now we're decreasing, and now you see the build again, especially in the US, I think for sure. Internationally, tremendously, because, you know, having the Winter Olympics in a place like China where things are being built like crazy. I mean, the ski resorts, there's thousands of ski resorts being built right now with
in a weekend
train access and all. Yeah, exactly. Overnight. You know, so it's exciting to see new places embracing these sports where at times they're like, no, this is too dangerous. It's daredevil. It's not a real sport. And now it's gaining legitimacy, especially obviously Korea, where the last Olympics before that was. So yeah, it's fun to see, you know, and there's plenty of opportunity. But and then in the world of fashion, I mean, you know, institutes like Montclair, doing fashion mixed with the outerwear, you know, it's just a great time to be doing that. Oh, there we go. We'll have to get you a Whitespace.
We'll have to get a Whitespace basketball.
It'll be a lot bigger than these, though. But yeah, it's fun to see, you know, the world change. I mean, especially in skateboarding. Look at the influence of skateboarding into, you know, mainstream and high-end fashion. It was supreme. And
I mean, I was told earlier today that skateboarding, the culture around skateboarding is as big as it's ever been right now.
Yeah, it's incredible to see. Where before, like, I mean, I remember my mom she pushed me more into snowboarding because there's just more money in the sport.
Yeah.
It's a more expensive sport. You have to get the lift ticket, the lodging, the travel, all the stuff. The equipment's more expensive, and she just, as a mother, was like, look, there's a better career path for you in the world of snowboarding. But skateboarding now is like you can have your signature, shoe. You have your big shoe deal, your big, it's pretty cool. But I think it's rad, especially with the Olympics taking it on. It's like there's this whole generation of skateboarders that now have that future, or will get support by their community to go for that future that they want.
It feels like so many of these sports that aren't these professional major sports now have these new opportunities where people realize the community around the sport is so big that let's not try to build this like the NFL or the NBA, but snowboarding has such a big community. Let's figure out how to make this its own big institution. And you see it happening with sports now, like pickleball, which we were talking about earlier, and lacrosse, which is really starting to explode a bit.
I know, and it's pretty wild to think about, because for me, I mean, a big reason of why I wanted to start my sports and music festival, Air and Style, was because the fact that like there was no real tour for snowboarding. Like there was the X Games that's owned on its and operated on its own, and then there's like the U.S. Open events that was a Burton-owned operation, and then there's the FIS events, which are actually their own point system, which you could say was the closest thing to a tour, but it was all scattered, random events in Japan and in South America, all over the place. And I was like, gosh, could you imagine if we had a tour? Like you tune in, and this is the first stop of the who's winning, where are the rankings? Like it's all kind of all over the place. So I think the future of the sport definitely needs that, and I see that becoming a reality with
the Whitespace tour.
Hey, I was hoping the Air and Style, world,
something
Air and
Style
tour, where because Big Air is the event that we feature. We build a 16-story jump and host an event.
Where was the festival?
There was 3 of them. There was one in Beijing at the Bird's Nest. There's one in Austria, and it's called the Bergisel Stadium. And then there was one in Los Angeles. We did 1 year at the Rose Bowl, and then we did the next 2-3 years at the Coliseum. COVID put a stop to everything, but and it was amazing, and it was really working. But what happens is Big Air is now an event that happens at the Olympics. So when I started, there was only half pipe, and they're like, oh well, there's other disciplines, so let's do half pipe and then slope style, which is a series of jumps. And then they're like, well, we got half pipe, slope style. What about Big Air? Because the ratings are amazing. They want more snowboarding on TV, and so Big Air is just like one big jump, your best trick. And so we would host that event in the city, which was fun because you'd bring people to see something that only takes place in the mountains, but we're building it in the city.
What is it? You get as much like airtime as you can, and then pull off one insane trick?
As many flips and spins as you can get in before. It's kind of like, skiing, I forget what they call it, but why am I not thinking of what it is?
Because you don't care about skiing.
Don't tell anyone. No, but it's literally that. It's like your best stylish, biggest trick you can do. People are doing quad flips now. I mean, it's getting outrageous, and we have to be able to jump bigger and bigger.
You probably got out the right time.
Sustain that, because it's like an airplane. You need bigger the plane. You need more runway to land on. But things like that. But that's an Olympic event. So I think the long-term goal for us was to become a qualifying series for the Olympics. So you're actually watching that take place. But I don't know. I mean, these are all huge, endeavors and things that I feel like I have time for now, and can actually be a part of the meetings and influence and change. And, it's not really the role I'll admit I wanted to take on while competing. It's hard to wear so many hats and do things. I mean, I even got flack a couple times. Like, why isn't he, implement? I'm like, God, I'm trying to learn the trick. I got to do, there's a lot going on, and still, be a good brother and son and, boyfriend or whatnot. And so, I think now is a beautiful time in my life to really kind of lean into those things, see where the sport's going, see where I can be of use, and where I want to be involved and with the right people, or we'll just get the pickleball team and we'll be out there.
You can do that too, man.
We'll be out there.
Well, I'll tell you, at 36 years old.
Yeah, 36.
To have done what you've done in your life, have this doc coming out, have Whitespace, and like you said, it's just a blank canvas of opportunity in front of you. It's pretty amazing, man. It's been incredible catching up with you. If you're in New York for 3 months, you know what would be a real bucket list thing for me?
Yeah, what's
I've
that?
never been able to skateboard.
Oh, really?
I cannot skateboard, bro.
Oh, man.
You think 15, 20 minutes you could get me to skateboard?
For sure.
Amazing.
Sure.
Deal.
Yeah. We'll
Deal.
get you a real long board.
Yeah.
No, it's
something.
fun. You just have to have the patience, and go somewhere where it's not like the big cracks in the
Well, I've
street.
waited
like,
45 years.
We'll take
so
you
I'm
somewhere good.
All right, perfect.
I got you.
Done.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, thank you for
Cheers.
joining Boardrooms Out of Office, Whitespace, exclusively at Backcountry. Shaun White, legend.
Thank you.